Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something maybe a bit niche on the surface. How preachers figure out what to preach on, what topics and texts they choose.
Yeah, but hold on before you think, oh, that's not for me, because really anyone who listens to speeches, presentations, even just stories from friends, someone's making choices there.
That's true.
And understanding how messages get crafted, even sermons, gives you, well, really valuable insights into communication generally.
Exactly. It's about how messages work. And we're digging into this using some excerpts from Robert Little's book, Preaching Topics and Texts.
Right, it gives a pretty good look behind the curtain historically and now.
So our mission today, if you like, is to unpack that process, explore the thinking behind choosing the what and the how of the message.
A real behind-the-scenes look at communication, maybe even persuasion.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Yeah.
A really big question the book raises is, how do preachers pick their topics?
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes it's kind of set, right? Like with a lectionary, that's a fixed schedule of readings.
Yeah, that takes some of the weekly pressure off, deciding the passage at least.
But often the preacher's choosing. And this is where it gets interesting. Is it purely their choice? Or is there this sense of divine nudge, like knowing what people need to hear?
That's the core tension, isn't it? And the book shares some, well, relatable stories about that.
Oh, yeah.
Preachers talking about sermons they were super enthusiastic about, poured everything into,
Yeah.
and they just, fell flat, didn't connect.
Ouch. Been there. Maybe not preaching, but yeah.
Exactly. And then other times, maybe they felt a bit obligated, less excited about a topic.
Uh-huh.
And that's the one that hits home, really resonates deeply with people.
It makes you think, doesn't it,
Yeah.
about talks you've heard. Sometimes it feels like the speaker's reading your mail,
No, totally.
and other times it's like, yeah, they know their stuff, but meh, just doesn't land.
Precisely. And the book connects this to the preacher's own spiritual life. Well, it suggests that being an effective channel for those impactful messages really depends on things like regular prayer, digging into the Bible, and also what it calls devotional reading and other relevant research, which sounds quite broad.
Relevant research. So not just religious texts.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Suggests staying tuned into the world, the community's needs, a wider range of ideas being, connected.
That makes sense. It's more than just book smarts. It's about connection to the source.
Yeah.
Into the people.
Right.
Now, something else the book gets into is this balance between being original and, well, just passing on what's already there.
The borrowing question.
Yeah, it says adapting stuff from other preachers is actually pretty common, historically speaking.
It is. And it makes a fascinating comparison to the Apostle John.
In the New Testament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His letters weren't always brand new ideas. Often, he was restating, reinforcing what Jesus taught. The core message stays the same.
So it's less about inventing something totally new.
And more about how you present those timeless truths so they feel fresh, relevant, and actually motivate people today in their world.
Okay, like finding new ways to say important things.
Exactly. And the book mentions amplification, a technique from rhetoric. John did this brilliantly.
Amplification.
He'd circle back to core ideas, life, truth, love, but each time, maybe a slightly different angle, a fresh image, keeping it potent.
So not just repeating, but deepening.
Yes, it's a good lesson for any communication, really. How do you revisit key points without sounding like a broken record?
That's a challenge. And then there's that funny limerick about C.H. Spurgeon.
Yeah. The famous preacher.
Apparently even he wasn't shy about borrowing a good idea.
It shows that even the greats build on others' work, and you can still find Spurgeon's sermons online today, loads of them, plus countless modern ones. It's a continuous thing.
Which leads us neatly into structure, right? How do you put it all together?
The book nods to the classic. Intro, 3 points, conclusion.
The old standard.
It's simple, but it works, gives clarity. People can follow along.
True. But it also mentions a shift sometimes.
Yeah, a trend towards maybe disguising those headings a bit, making it feel more like a flowing discourse, less like a formal outline.
More conversational.
Exactly. And one really neat idea is the sermon seed book.
Seed book, like for gardening.
Sort of. Like a notebook, physical or digital, just for jotting down those initial sparks, ideas, phrases as they come.
Like Beethoven sketching musical ideas.
That's the comparison they make, capturing those fleeting thoughts before they vanish.
Yeah.
We all need a way to do that, don't we?
Definitely. But the book adds a crucial warning here.
Which is?
Just copying someone else's words, it lacks authenticity. Always.
Right, you've got to make it your own.
It stresses needing your own writing and editing skills. To internalize the idea, then rephrase it concisely, memorably, in your voice, for your audience.
Absolutely key. And underlying all of this, the book hammers home that the content needs to be grounded in the source material. For preaching, that's the Bible. It uses this great analogy, the national anthem at a rugby match.
Go on.
It shouldn't just be played at the start and then forgotten. The source, the Bible in this case, needs to be woven throughout. It's the constant support, the reference point.
That's a powerful image, not just a starting point, but integrated all the way through.
Exactly. So from there, the book outlines some key things to consider during preparation. Really useful for any kind of communication, I think.
Okay, like what?
First, God, or you could say the core message, the main purpose.
Right.
Preaching, it suggests, should flow from a deep connection with that message, like Jeremiah feeling he had to speak. That genuine belief is vital for any speaker.
You have to be convinced yourself. Makes sense. What's next?
Your audience, hugely important.
Knowing who you're talking to.
Yes, not just broadcasting info, but really understanding their needs, their questions, their context, tailoring the message to them.
Instead of just preaching at them.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Then there's the calendar, or maybe think of it as relevant framework.
Like the Christian year.
Yeah.
Advent, Lent, etc.
Exactly. That provides a natural rhythm and themes. But it applies more broadly, too. Are there company cycles, project deadlines, annual events that shape your communication needs?
Good point. A guiding structure. And the last one.
Yourself. The speaker's unique perspective.
Okay.
Our own experiences, passions, convictions, they add authenticity, for sure.
But. There's
Yeah.
a but, isn't there?
Ah, yes. The book cautions against becoming too predictable or too self-focused. It mentions that misquoted hymn line.
Oh, the countless texts, but only one sermon idea.
That's the one. A warning against just riding your own hobby horses all the time. Let the source and the audience needs lead.
Okay, good balance to strike. Now, the book also talks about different types of sermons, right? Topical versus textual.
Yes, and again, this maps onto other kinds of communication structures.
So topical is.
Built around a specific theme, maybe forgiveness or hope. Or it could be biographical, focusing on a person's life, or doctrinal, exploring a specific belief.
Got it. And textual.
That focuses tightly on a specific bit of the text, could be just one word, a single verse, or a longer passage.
Right. And when you're researching themes, especially for topical stuff, the book flags language nuances.
Ah, yeah, the translation issue. Like the word love in English covers several different Greek words, each with a distinct shade of meaning.
So you need to dig deeper than just the surface word.
Definitely. A reminder for any field, really. Know your key terms.
And what about topics not in the Bible, like, I don't know, AI ethics?
Good question. The book suggests looking for the underlying principles in the source material. What broader themes, justice, responsibility, wisdom can guide us?
Okay, finding relevant principles. Makes sense. What about those biographical sermons, focusing on people's lives?
They have a natural appeal, don't they? Stories connect. People relate to human struggles, even ancient ones.
Yeah, definitely.
But the book adds a caution. Remember the context. Historical, cultural context is huge.
Right. Don't just apply it directly without thinking.
And maybe focus less on imitating their specific actions and more on what their story reveals about the bigger picture, God's plan, or human nature, or enduring principles.
Okay, learn from the narrative, not just the characters' choices in isolation.
Exactly. Then there are doctrinal sermons explaining beliefs.
Can sound a bit dry, maybe?
Potentially. But Spurgeon had great advice here, too. He said you need to grind it into flour, bake it into bread, and slice it with a little honey.
Huh. Make it digestible.
Yes, make complex ideas accessible. Don't just dump a load of theory on people, like taking medicine with water, maybe. Make it easier to swallow.
Good analogy. Focus on clarity, not overwhelming detail.
Right. Now, shifting to textual sermons, focusing on the words themselves, the book generally leans towards preaching on a larger passage.
Like that.
More context. It's usually, well, safer, less risk of taking something out of its intended meaning.
Okay. Preaching on just one word sounds tricky.
It can be creative, but yeah, risky. Easy to read your own ideas into it or mistranslation nuances without the surrounding sentences.
Gotcha. What about just one verse? That seems common.
Very common. And even familiar verses can offer new insights. But again, context matters. The book reminds us those verse numbers weren't original.
Ah, right. They were added later.
And sometimes the breaks aren't ideal. It mentions Colossians 3.18 as an example, needing cultural context beyond just the single verse.
So isolating verses can be problematic too.
It can be. The danger is presenting the Bible or any source text as just a collection of fortune cookie sayings disconnected from the larger story.
Right, losing the narrative flow.
That's why it advocates for also preaching on bigger chunks, whole books even, to keep that context clear.
So passage-based sermons seem like a strong approach.
Generally, yes. It respects the text more, reduces the temptation to just inject your own pet ideas.
But there's a but here too.
Yeah, avoid just doing a dry verse-by-verse commentary. That can become more like a lecture.
Not necessarily a life-changing message.
Exactly. It needs connection and application, which
Right.
leads to expository preaching.
Okay, what's that define as?
Examining a passage carefully in its original setting, that's the exegesis part, the careful interpretation,
Right.
and then applying its meaning to life today. Good exposition blends that deep interpretation with contemporary relevance and application.
So what it meant then and what it means now for
Yes,
us.
precisely. It's that bridge.
And finally, the book brings it back to the messenger themselves.
Yeah, with that powerful quote from Richard Baxter back in the 17th century.
What did he say?
Take heed to yourselves, lest your example contradict your doctrine.
Wow. Live what you preach, basically.
Essentially, a reminder that authenticity matters hugely, though it also implies we're all human, all fallible communicators.
That's a good dose of reality there.
Definitely. So, wrapping it all up, this dive shows that effective communication, sermon or otherwise, isn't accidental.
No, it's very intentional.
It involves really thinking about the message, deeply understanding the audience, picking the right structure, and, well, being credible yourself.
And hopefully, exploring this through the lens of preaching gives everyone listening some tools, some ways to think about analyzing messages they hear
Yeah.
and maybe crafting their own.
Yeah, hopefully. So, maybe a final thought to chew on.
Go for it.
Think about the last really impactful message you heard, something that stuck with you.
Okay.
Knowing what we've discussed about preparation, context, delivery, what do you think made it work so well? What can you learn from that for your own understanding or even your own communication?
That's definitely some good food for thought. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, keep an eye out for these principles in action everywhere.
Absolutely. You'll start seeing them all over the place once you look.